Hey guys, Probo1701 here, and today we're going to talk about some Fourth Doctor. Now in the comments, somebody had mentioned liking Season 16 better than 15, and that they mentioned that they thought Season 16 was usually considered better than 15. Which is interesting to me, because I had always thought people thought higher of 15 than they did of 16. And then I started thinking about it, and I realized both seasons kind of have their ups and their downs, their good and their bads. Like all of the Williams era, all three of the Williams seasons are kind of mixed bags. You know, none of them are just like nearly flawless like the Hinchcliffe era pretty much is. So it got me thinking about seasons 15 and 16, and I am curious to you guys which season you think is better. Like if you could pick one season, kind of like the It's Armageddon videos, if you could only save one season between season 15 and season 16, which one would you save, and just which one you like better? It's interesting because they both kind of have highs to some degree or another, and then they both have lows to one degree or another. Now, I do think 15 has the advantages. It has 1, 2, or 3, depending on how you look at it, actual bona fide classics, whereas I don't really think 16 necessarily has that. I think there's a couple you could argue for, but just bona fide top 10 masterpieces, I don't think it has any. I think it has some good stories, but I don't know if any of them really get above great, into that masterclass category like I think 15 does. Let's start at the bottom, though, and work our way up. I think most people would agree that the worst story in season 16 is Power of Kroll. And I think most people would say the weakest story in season 15 is Underworld. It's not my least favorite. I do actually find Underworld quite underrated. Not necessarily essential Doctor Who, but underrated. My least favorite from 15 is probably Invasion of Time. But let's say Underworld and Power of Kroll, which interestingly enough are directed by the same person. And these are the only Doctor Who stories he directed, if I remember correctly. Apparently he just wasn't good at doing Doctor Who stories. Because I find the scripts to both of these stories to be very good. Power of Kroll is of course written by Bob Holmes, and I love Bob Holmes, he's awesome. But the execution of both of these scripts have problems. I think Underworld pulls it off better, aside from the bad CSO, which is bad, but I actually do enjoy the story to Underworld. It makes it very watchable. I think Tom is good as in Underworld, and I actually like the model work. The model work's actually done really good in Underworld. I really feel like it's just the bad CSO putting it off, whereas Power of Kroll is the only Tom Baker story I personally find unwatchable. I think the scale of what they were trying to do with this creature could not be realized on their budget. I don't think they should have moved forward with this script. The script itself is fine. I'm not saying it's anything stellar, but it's fine. Again, I've never seen Bob Holmes do a bad script. No, I've never actually listened to the Space Pirates. Yes, I know I need to listen to the Space Pirates. I know somebody will point that out to me in the comments. But I think the script is fine. Nothing stellar, just fine. The execution of this story is awful. And Tom, for some reason, Tom can usually save a bad script. Usually, even if it's a story that I don't care for, Tom is good at it. Horns of Nimon is a good example. I like the Horns of Nimon mainly because of Tom. The story is very naff, but I can still go back and watch it because I absolutely love Tom in it. For some reason, I don't know if what it is, but even Tom doesn't save this one for me. There's nothing memorable even about him in this one. He's not bad in this one. But just nothing stands out. He doesn't have any of his classic witty moments in this, really, for me. I can't remember anything. So in that category, I like 15 more because I actually can watch Underworld, whereas Power of Kroll I can't watch. It's the only Tom Baker story that I personally never want to watch again. Looking at their finales, I actually think season 16 has a better finale. I do like Armageddon Factor better than Invasion of Time. And Invasion of Time is not a bad idea. It's just very obvious the money had run out. I think the initial aliens who land look awful. The little baggy tinsel look is terrible. Now, I know there is a special edition for Invasion of Time, which really cleans it up. I've seen the special edition shots on YouTube. I don't own the Invasion of Time, so I haven't got to actually just sit down and watch the whole story with those new effects. I'm pretty sure I would like it better with that. I'm looking forward to the season 15 box set so I can watch that. I've only seen the original version of it. I do like Tom in Invasion of Time. He's good. I like having Barusa back. I love his kind of resigned to it attitude of the story. Seeing the Sultarans brought in is a nice twist. I don't see that coming. I think it gets interesting there. I find the Castellan very irksome. The TARDIS interiors are awful. This really takes me out of the story, because the whole time I'm watching this, my suspension of disbelief turns off. Anytime they're walking around in the TARDIS interiors and it's just laughably, obviously not the inside of the TARDIS. I can't wrap my head around that being the inside of the TARDIS. I can't. It takes me out of it. And then the abrupt way Leela departs is just, it's bad. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. That being said, I still enjoy watching The Invasion of Time. I don't think it's a bad story. It's just, I don't like it as much as I do Armageddon Factor. I think Armageddon Factor has a really good script. There's a lot of ideas in Armageddon Factor that I like. I don't think it's executed perfectly, but I like it. I like that these two factions are at war because the third party is pulling the strings to make them at war. Very similar to Frontier in Space, actually. I really like Frontier in Space. With somebody pulling the strings to get them fighting for their own, to meet his own ends. The realization of the Shadow, to me, isn't done all that well with the makeup and his kind of hammy acting. But it isn't bad. I mean, it's perfectly tolerable. Kind of fits the Williams era, really. I really like the bit with the time loop, and we see the time loop stretching with the clock countdown. I think that's really neat. Again, some of the set design is a little cheap. One of the officers who holds his gun like this all the time is a little campy and silly. Other than that, I like the actors. Just that one part, it's just a little campy and silly whenever he's holding his gun. I don't know. Again, it kind of fits the campy Williams era. And of course, I like the ending with the Doctor and the White Guardian. And that whole little bit. I love that little ending scene at the end of the episode. I think Tom is fantastic there. Other stories, like my two favorite stories from season 16 are the Ribos Operation, or Rebus Operation. I forget, I can never remember a week after I watched that story how it's supposed to be pronounced. So the Ribos Operation, I really like that one. I think most of the acting is done there. There's a couple of the actors that ham it up. It's a really solid story. The scenes between Tom and Romana in part 1 are probably my favorite scenes with Tom and Romana. Or the Fourth Doctor and Romana, I should say. I love that. When they're first talking in the TARDIS, right when they first land on the planet and come out of the TARDIS, it's very humorous, and I absolutely love it. Probably why I like Romana 1 better than I like Romana 2, honestly. But I do enjoy that story. Pirate Planet, I really like. It's a bit, comedy, but that's good. I like it. It works. The guy playing the captain nails his role perfectly. But again, while these are my two favorite stories of the season, I don't think they're masterpieces. Whereas I do think season 15 has some masterpieces. Number 1, Horror of Fang Rock. I do think Horror of Fang Rock is a bona fide masterpiece. I'm enjoying my rewatch of it here, which is taking me forever to get through, I know. But I'm absolutely enjoying it. I do think that you can class that as a classic, as a masterpiece. It would have fit right in the seasons 14 or seasons 13. Either one. So I think season 15 has that as a masterpiece. I also think it has other really strong episodes like The Sunmakers. The Sunmakers is weird because I never quite know where it falls in the fandom. Some people don't seem to care for it. Other people seem to be like me. I had somebody in the comments say, you mentioned it being overrated or underrated, yeah. I didn't know it was underrated. I'm like, because they like it like I do. But it's weird with The Sunmakers. I really enjoy it, and sometimes I see other fans that really like it, but sometimes I hear people talk rubbish about The Sunmakers, and so I don't quite know the general consensus for it. I absolutely love it. It's a cracking good Bob Holmes script. I think some of the people who criticize it might not be able to understand it, because I just honestly think there are people growing up today in the crazy world we live in that just don't understand satire and what satire is. I literally think there are people running around that if I said satire to them, they wouldn't know what I meant. Because in 2020 world, the world is pretty much a satire of itself anyway. It's really hard to do satire these days with the world we live in. I watched South Park episodes from 20 years ago that were done as satire, and it's the kind of stuff that's happening now. So I could see some people not getting The Sunmakers, but at the time it was written, especially, it was great satire of taxes. Obviously Bob Holmes was pissed off about his taxes. There is a little bit of campy acting from the one tax collector, but again, since it's supposed to be satire, I think the campy acting fits And because of that, I really like it. Plus, so much of Tom's good stories are focused on the kind of horror or gothic element, especially like seasons 13, 14, part of 15, and even part of 12 with Ark in Space. I think if you were to do like a top 10 list of Tom Baker Fourth Doctor stories that didn't have the horror gothic elements in it, I do think Sunmakers is one of those top 10. It is one of the strongest stories not to have that horror element in it. So it's nice to have a really good Tom Baker story that's not focused on that I can still point at and go, this is one of the ones you need to watch. It's really, really good. And then there's Image of the Fendahl, getting back kind of to the horror theme. I've mentioned before that some of the execution of the Fendahl creature I have issues with, but other than that, I think it's clicking right into a classic range. It's right there at the border. If the creature had been realized right a little bit better, I would have put it right up there with horror. I think that's really the only thing. The gold paint with the painted on eyes and the kind of creature behind it pulls me out just a little bit. But the story for Image of the Fendahl is very strong. It's like, it's pounding right on that door of being a classic. I really do feel that. And I haven't seen Invisible Enemy, so I don't know. I don't hear the greatest things about Invisible Enemy, so that actually could be the weakest story for the season. I won't know until I see it. As for season 16, Android of Terra is a weird one because the first time I watched it, I really enjoyed it. One of my favorite stories of the season. The second time I watched it, I didn't really like it because it felt like Romana already getting reduced to that damsel in distress role. Because then she gets kidnapped. Then they rescue her. And then she gets kidnapped again. She doesn't really get to do a lot. And I get at this point she's very naive. She doesn't really know much about the universe. Very sheltered. But I felt like her character was just the typical, save me, Mario, save me. You know, and it kind of put me off. So I didn't enjoy it that time. And Stones of Blood is a weird one because parts of it I don't really like the parts with the stone pillars and the cult stuff I don't really care for. But the parts with the ship being there suspended in hyperspace I really like. And the scenes on the ship with the aliens on the ship and the whole trial thing, I love. Especially that Tom has his little hat that the British people wear, his little wig. I adore that. So that one's weird. I don't usually have a story that like half of it I don't really like and half of it I do really like. Because the first time I watched Stones of Blood, I didn't really care for it. Second time I watched Stones of Blood, I liked it a lot more because of the ship parts. I really liked the ship and the idea of the ship being stuck there in hyperspace. Since it's in a different dimension, nobody can see it. I really enjoyed that. So between the two, I prefer 15. I think 15 is a stronger season. I think it definitely has higher highs than 16. As for the lows, I think that's very argumentative, but personally I do think Underworld and Invasion of Time are way better than Power of Krull, which is awesome. Though I do think season 16 has a better series finale than season 15. But if I pick a winner at season 15, I personally like 15 better than 16. So I am curious what you think. Between seasons 15 and season 16, which one do you like better? Which one do you prefer? Which one do you think has the strongest story? Which one do you think has the weakest story? Which one do you think has the best finale? Which one do you think has the best middling stories? Let me know what you think down in the comments below and tell me why you feel the way you do. I always enjoy getting feedback from you guys. The comments have been very active lately. I like that. It was this video again. I got the idea for it from comments down in the comments. And there's been several of those lately where it's been comments in the comments section that have been like, hey, I need to do a video about that. So that's always nice. It's nice to see the community growing. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. Plus, if you subscribe, you can also, well, one, you know when a new video comes out, and two, you feel free to participate down in the comments. We're growing a nice little community down there. I'm really enjoying that. I've also started a Patreon page. If you would like to contribute to that, there is a link to that down in the description below. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month, so for just $2 a month, you can support me and what I do if you like my channel, which I very much appreciate. Most importantly, though, stay safe out there, and thank you for watching.